Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Shivani. I'm Associate Vice President and Head of Australia and New Zealand Operations in Trinamix. Trinamix is a specialist Oracle implementation partner, focuses on supply chain end-to-end implementation of Oracle Cloud Solution. We are a global organization with over 1,000 employees and over 400 customers across the board. During our webinar today, we are very excited to have NuPure team with us. I'm sure they do not need any introduction as they are part of our day-to-day life. While visiting supermarkets, traveling on flights, we use NuPure water. And today we will learn how NuPure Beverages supply chain to supply to leading markets and minimize their working capital. And Adrian, Monsi from NuPure team, Stephen from Oracle, and Philip from Trinamix. So, and at the end, we will also have question and answer. So feel free to push the button if you have questions at the bottom of your screen during the presentation. And we will also share the webinar recording with our attendees at the end. So now I will request all our panelists for their introduction, and we will know about them more. So first I will request Adrian to start with.
Thank you so much, Shivani. So my name is Adrian. I'm currently a National Planning Manager for NuPure. I've been working on different side of company using a lot of ERP throughout my career, and I led all the implementation of Oracle supply planning for the supply side of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Please, Monsi, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shivani. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our today's session. I am Montserrat Rodriguez. I am in charge of the strategic planning managing at NuPure. I have over 15 years of experience in multinational companies and also in the consumer good industry. And I have a specialization of supply chain management. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsi. Now I request you, Stephen, to please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mansi. Hello, my name is Stephen Nealon, Oracle Regional Sales Director. I've been working with organizations in many industries for over 10 years now, specializing in partnering with companies on their software enhancements. I'm really excited to connect with you all today and hopefully partner with you in the future. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you, Stephen. Phil, please go next.
Thanks, Shivani. Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Brown. I'm a solutions architect at Trinamix. Have over 30 years experience in supply chain, mostly in supply and demand roles, mostly in line management and with the implementation. So I was a solutions architect with the project we're working on with NuPure. Thanks, Shivani.
Thank you, Phil. So as a part moving forward, I would like to call about what we are going to share today and what we are going to discuss today and how we are going to learn more from NuPure. So for today's agenda, we are just going to more focus on today how NuPure deployed a full set of integrated supply cloud application to transform the management of their operations. NuPure is a success story, supplying healthy hydration to millions of consumers in Australia through all leading supermarket chains. We will chat with our speakers, Adrian and Monsi, about their experience at NuPure. NuPure has deployed this innovative initiative to keep supermarket shelves well stocked, I would say, while minimizing warehouse inventory, working capital, and operating costs. Through this session, we will also do the deep dive into the solution implemented and also present a few highlights of the engagement. So now, without further ado, let's learn more about NuPure journey and their experiences. So Monsi, I would request for the audience who are not familiar with NuPure, please give an overview about NuPure Beverages and also highlight the business drivers that triggered you to opting the Oracle Cloud.
Yes,
so
thank you, Shivani. Thank you. So for those who are not maybe familiar with NuPure, NuPure is a leading beverage brand in Australia. As you know, this big company was commenced in 2025 in a small facility here in Queensland. The family nowadays, it's a family-owned company. And one of our vision is to provide high quality, healthy hydration. And also we have a strong commitment in sustainability and to provide premium products standard. Nowadays, NuPure, as you can see, it's growing really, really fast. We can provide a private label, and also we can provide our brands And it's really important for us to understand what will be like the main drivers in this kind of growings and what will be the tools that we want to implement in our company to continue growing. It's a big challenge, and maybe Adrian, my colleague, will help us to understand more detailed perspective about our presence around the company.
Of course, Marcy, thank you. And as you all know, Australia is a big country, and we are covering every single bit of the country with our product. You've seen in the past few years how NuPure brand is taking over from a major retailer to I don't know, to a cafe, to everyone. We're almost everywhere. In order to do so, we have currently 4 plants, one in Queensland, one in New South Wales, one in Victoria, and one in West Australia. That leads us to actually be able to send stock around the country. With all the complexity that unfolds, that means a lot of freight, a lot of moving things around, and we're selling water. So we're selling water means we are basically driving all of our profit to volume. So one of the things that many people that work with me have heard me over the years is saying that we can only, from supply planning standpoint, we can only control 3 small things. We can control our service levels, we can control our cost, and perhaps our inventory. So one of the things that the key drivers that we're looking at the beginning is how can we increase and improve our service levels? How can we make sure we have the right stock at the right time? And in order to do so, we had like I would say 1 million different spreadsheets in order to do that. So we currently if everything goes well, at the end of the year, we'll be manufacturing like 1.25 billion bottles. That's with a B. So it's a really big business, and we are continuing with we partner with Trinamix in order to do this implementation to actually improve our cost even better, to give a better value and better service. And yeah. And last but not least, I didn't want to like waste this opportunity to actually say that our commitment to responsible resource usage, and we integrate sustainability in everything we do, from our energy generation to waste reduction to actually we are vertical completely the company, so the amount of plastic we use and everything is part of our environmental commitment. We're 100% recyclable rPET, as you can see, all our brands and all logos and everything, and we are committed to reducing our carbon footprint every single year a bit more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adrian and Monty, for that quick introduction about NuPure Beverages, and it's good to hear that it's growing that fast. So now I'm just going to focus on the snapshot of Oracle modules, I would say, what they have already implemented at NuPure. So if I'll talk from the planning perspective, we already have demand planning and supply planning. They also have a full ERP suite, which has financials and which is account payable, general ledger, and account receivables. From supply chain execution side, they have procurement, manufacturing, order management, inventory, quality, and costing. They have a bit of highlighted their roadmap where they're looking forward just to go for transportation as well. So that is their roadmap at the moment. And in today's webinar, we are going to focus specifically on the planning engagement, which includes supply planning, demand planning, and replenishment planning. And I would say it's the fastest implementation with tenure of just 12 weeks. What actually happened between us, Trinamix and NuPure. And I will now request Monty to share what benefits they have to achieve throughout this engagement. And also, could you please share your experience working with Trinamix and Oracle teams? Pointers around that, according to you, what made that engagement successful? So over to you, Monty.
Thank you, Shivani. Perfect. So through my career, I have some experience related to lead and implement this kind of tools. And in a regular business, it's really important to understand where is your maturity and what are the next steps that you need to continue implementing to understand where we want to go for this kind of implementation. So actually, we always have a couple of questions that for me are really important. One of the key questions always is what I could do in my business to change a little bit the supply chain, and I can achieve my goals with all the challenges that we have around. It's really complicated because at the end, the supply chain always hits a bet. There's a lot of external factors that you have all the days in your daily activities, and it's really hard to control all of them. This is the first thing that we need to understand what we could do better to try to decrease this kind of key factors that could change everything around your supply chain. The second question is, what is the key for the change management? Because it's really important to understand that when we are doing this kind of implementation, the big challenge is that always you are trying to step an uncertainty path. There's a lot of pain around because in this kind of implementation, so sometimes will be really faster, but sometimes they are a little bit slow. But this kind of investment that you need to do, it's about resources, that it's human people, and the other thing, it's the tools that you can provide to your business to improve these kind of things. So in my experience, the key for do this kind of changes and change the management of the full organizations in all their levels are the facts, the information, the data-driven that could help us to make a really good decision. So one of the things that we can increase, and one of the benefits that you can have, it's the end-to-end visibility. When you implement this kind of Oracle planning models, they have a really significant role in help us in a business. Because with this, you have an end-to-end visibility. That means that anyone in the organization could have access to the tool and could review the actual information. Always the information is live, and also this will be the formal or the official information that you can provide them. So this end-to-end visibility make the full business to be aligned, and all of us, we can work together to try to achieve our goals. The second thing, of course, is the automation. The automation nowadays, it's really important. It's not a choice. You need to have in your company this kind of automation. It's one of the advantages that you can provide all your employees in a company, because instead spending a lot of time trying to do Excels or trying to formulate all our data, the automation is a really important thing nowadays for these kind of companies. Other thing that we can improve is the S&OP process. If you have a good alignment around the communication, around all the levels, and you have this kind of automation, all the decisions that you will make, it will be better because you have an alignment in the S&OP process. Of course, this kind of tool could help us also to improve our inventories. Nowadays, the word that it's the stock on time, or to try to have the correct inventory on time always, it's really hard because at the end, the demand it could be fluctuating. Yeah, all the days the demand could change around the country, around all the items that we have. But it's really important to understand that the inventory, it's a really important key in your business to try to reduce some cost in your business. We also have the customer service improvement, because if you have the correct demand and the correct stock in your warehouses, this will transform in a really good customer service. So at the end, all of these things will drive us to a sales increase. So in my experience, it's really important to understand that this tool is something really necessary in your business. One of the keys of, in my opinion, of the success is that you need to have someone like Trinamix to help you and to drive you in the correct path to take the correct decisions. Because at the end, Oracle is a really important tool, but you need to take some decisions around Oracle. So it's really important to have this kind of partnership, to have or to develop a trustable relationship with them, and to understand that at the end, this kind of partnership will help everyone in the organization. Also, nowadays, it's really important to understand what will happen in the future, to have or to run some projection. So actually, this tool can help us and provide us a short-term, but also a long-term view of the demand, and also in the supply planning perspective, that could help us to understand if we need to make some changes or some adjustments around our supply chain to be more successful. So in my experience, there are like the key factors to understand what will happen in your supply chain, and also to be successful around the kind of implementation that you can do in this kind of models. Yeah, this is my experience. So maybe Adrian, that is my colleague, can explain us what will be or what are the keys to be successful in this kind of implementations, please.
Thank you so much, Monse. I want to add that, like Shivani said at the beginning, it was the fastest implementation that Trinamix have ever done. And another thing I would add on top of that is that, we are in the water business, so basically it's a very seasonal item, and we did it in the middle of summer, which is our peak season. So all of that together, we made it happen. One of the things that I think was a key factor is that the fact that we already have the Oracle ecosystem, so most of the things are already there. You just have to like figure out how do you want to flow into supply planning. So that's one thing. But basically, I think the main thing that I ensure that this drives to a good port at the end of the day is that it was a very, like the alignment we got from the senior leadership down, from top down. So we all knew we had to do it. We know that I had 12 weeks. We had all the deliverables and everything in place in order to do it in these 12 week and all the UATs and testing and everything. That implementation and that validation project plan that we had on the first day, I think really helped in order to have a successful implementation. The other thing that is really important is that you can obviously implement software and leave it there, but the important bit is that people use it. So there's a change management piece that in order to do it, I know not many people like change, that's normal. But what we decided to do is have a stage approach. So if we had some spreadsheets that we used to do X process or deciding what to put on the line and so forth, we decided from the very beginning that we're gonna keep those spreadsheets, or perhaps one by one, slowly getting rid of them with Oracle. And so the person that was using the spreadsheets don't have to like have a complete change all of a sudden. So that stretch approach was really helpful because people kind of understood the perks and the good things about having everything in like one-stop shop for everything in supply planning, like from using the system. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that we had a close collaboration with Trinamix, everything from gather requirements to designing solutions and do the testing. And another thing I will add is that if you are going to have this, let's say, ambitious implementation again, I would recommend to have someone stepping down of their current job and doing that, only that, because there's a lot of data requirements and everything that it's really important in order to make like a successful implementation. So all the requirements and everything that we implemented had to align with our strategic objectives. So we had to have that discussion at the beginning. And the data migration also happened in a very smooth way. Like when we went live, we did a week of testing and everything was perfect. So we had the confidence that we can start using this software for our day-to-day lives. And another thing, and I will touch a bit with what Monsi said. So it's also helpful that someone already went to that path, so then they know exactly what you might fall, what the side of data you need to bring or have the decision you need to make. So that actually simplify the whole conversation to you. Okay, these are the pain points that we need to solve. These are the things that you need to make a decision, and let's make a plan. Let's go for it. And that was pretty much the recipe for I believe a successful implementation. I think I will leave you now with Philip and Shivani, the rest.
Thank you so much, Monsi and Adrian. It was very, very informative. And thank you so much for sharing and highlighting benefits and views on the engagement. For the next section of the webinar, I would like to hand over to Phil to take us through the solution highlights as well as the generic product demo. Over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Shivani. So for the purposes of talking about the highlights, I thought I'd just pick on a few things that were kind of unique to NuPure's environment in terms of the solution we're developing, particularly around DM and supply planning, replenishment planning. On the one hand, in terms of the planning process, as Monty said, we've got a long-term S&OP process in place, which requires, to some extent, on stability. And so for the long term, we would plan to ship from a primary DC or manufacture in a primary center, and then ship that to customers from those locations. But in the short term, we've got an environment which is much more flexible than that, and NuPure wanted to model that in the supply planning process. So in the short term, even though we might plan or forecast to ship from a given DC, on the day, we might actually choose to fulfill an order from any of the other DCs that are available, either perhaps because that DC had stock at the time, or it might have been from a customer satisfaction point of view, a more viable solution. So I'm going to talk through quickly the three. So I'll talk about DM, supply planning, and then replenishment planning. So if I just go to the DM solution and talk a little bit about this, this is a situation that I think many organizations kind of have. So it wasn't totally unique to NuPure, but the solution that we did was a little bit unique for NuPure, and it was kind of quite a neat solution. So again, you've got two things happening. So on the one hand, we're generating forecasts at our primary DC, and that's from our long-term forecasting and S&OP process. But then, as I said, on the day, we might choose to ship from somewhere else. And so in this scenario that I've got in the diagram, we've got our forecast sitting on our primary DC in green, and then we're doing a shipment of 50 units out of our alternate DC. Now, the problem that you have in most supply planning systems in that scenario is that you risk having a double up of demand, because we've still got our forecast for 100 units sitting on our primary DC, and now we've got a forecast of 50 units in addition sitting on our alternate DC. So now we've got a total demand of 150. So many organizations run into this same problem, and it leads to either a duplication in demand and then potentially supply that you didn't want or stock that you didn't want. And then later on, it ends up with a forecasting issue. So for the purposes of the short term, and for that orders being shipped from alternate locations, we decided that we would make adjustments to the forecast. So for every open order that we had that was shipped from a DC other than its primary DC, we did an adjustment to the forecast in the primary DC. So in this case, in the 50 units that we ship from alternate, we would reduce the primary DC by 50 units, and then we would add that 50 units to the alternate DC. So that meant that from a total demand perspective, our forecasts and our sales orders lined up. We didn't have a duplication of demand. And if you added up all of the forecasts, the sum of forecasts would still equal the original forecast that we had. So that kind of dealt with the short-term requirement in terms of keeping that in alignment. For the long-term perspective, we still needed to have the history reflected on the primary DC, because ultimately that's where we're going to plan to do our manufacturing, to store our stock, where we need to plan our capacity, et cetera, et cetera. So for the long-term perspective, we would look, once the orders were closed and the shipments were done, we would look at orders that had been shipped from a DC other than the primary, and we would pick up the history and we would make an adjustment, and we would reassign that history back to the primary DC. So the primary DC always had the correct history on it. So we had this constant adjustment happening, and all of this is done through Oracle integrations. So it was quite neat. We avoided having to do manual adjustments, etc., as most people did, and we avoided the problem about forecast underconsumption, overconsumption that a lot of organizations run into. So that kind of dealt with the DM part. if we talk about the supply planning part, so from a supply planning point of view, NuPure had an interesting requirement because as well as planning capacity on the resources, they also had a capacity constraint on the warehouses that they wanted to factor in as well. So the product in the warehouses, to a large extent, is stacked multiple pallets high, and it's block stacked within the warehouse. So what Adrian wanted to know was, from a warehouse capacity point of view, how much capacity is allocated. And we're looking at capacity not from a cubic volume in terms of stacks, but rather the footprint of the stacks in the warehouse floor. So if we've got, as you can see, this is a snapshot from the test system. And what you can see down the bottom is the capacity on the warehouses. So for October, you can see that we've got the warehouse loaded at 84%. And then in November, we've got the warehouse loaded at 148%. And then in December, loaded at 155%. So we do the calculation basically by taking the volume of the products being produced, determining how many pallets that will be, and then based on how many stacks high we can go, we can get the footprint. And each SKU potentially is going to have a different number of pallets in the stack. So for each SKU, we have to determine what the footprint is going to be. Now, most of this calculation was done through measures within supply planning. One of the reasons why we didn't try and use resources to do the capacity planning is that we also had to factor in the stock on hand. And if you look at resources in supply planning, typically that's done by looking at what we're about to build or what we're building at the moment. So what we're doing now and what we're going to do in the future. It doesn't consider what we've already completed. So in order to do that here, you'll see that on the second row of 31, we've actually got our stock on hand in terms of stacks, and then we add to that our plan. So this basically lets us see what the load on the plant is going to be in the future. We can make decisions about whether or not we need to outsource some of that storage capacity to a third-party DC, or whether potentially we're going to move that to another manufacturing site. And which brings us back to that point in the slide we looked at in DM about why we might ship it from a different location. So this was a little bit unique in terms of the planning for supply planning that I haven't sort of done too much in other sites that hasn't been focused on. And then if you look then at the next slide, which is on replenishment planning, you'll see that the third thing we're doing is trying to consider all of the stocks we've got in the system and where they need to be located, which takes us back to one of the points Monsi made about management of inventory. So from if you look at this example we've been using, from a primary DC point of view, we had a forecast there to manufacture stock, and maybe we manufactured the stock, so we're now sitting on 200 units, but in fact we shipped it from somewhere else. And yet on the alternate DC on the left, we've got a forecast, but now we don't have enough stock. And similarly, we might have a forecast on the DC on the right, and also we don't have any stock. So supply planning is generally, as a tool, is generally fairly structured in that it looks at, predefined network of supply. But in this case, we want to be able to look at all of the DCs that we've got and all the manufacturing sites, see what surpluses we might have and what shortages we might have, and rebalance the whole supply chain network. So replenishment planning helps us with that because we can input into replenishment planning the maximum stock levels that we want and the minimum stock levels that we're prepared to accept. And then we can look at all of the sites that we have and see how we need to redistribute that product. So in this model, we can just move the stock around. So in this case, we find we've got a surplus in our primary DC. We've got a shortfall in the alternate on the left and the alternate on the right. And so we can use that to move the stock and top up those locations. And then once that's all done and the replenishment planning process is finished, then we can go back to our standard supply planning process and run our supply plan, knowing that we don't have surplus stocks in other locations that we should have considered when we ran the supply plan. So our supply plan will then optimize and try and minimize our stocks and maximize our service levels. So there were three kind of fairly interesting points, I think, out of that solution that we tried to do, or we managed to do, in order to help NuPure improve their forecasting and planning processes. If you've got any questions at the end, we're happy to answer any more on that. Thanks, Shivani.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for sharing the information related with implementation. So I think so that our audience must be found it very interesting. Before we move to question and answer, I would like to go back to Monsi and Adrian and request them to share the glimpses about what next at NuPure. I did mention briefly about transportation, but our audience must be interested to know what would be the future roadmap for NuPure.
Yeah, sure thing. So I can take this one, Monty. So we finished up those three models that we talked: demand management, supply planning, and replenishment, which is a bit of a part of supply planning. Our next goal is production scheduling. So we're trying at the moment. We are basically, it's the idea is you already have the supply planning for a more long-term view, more strategic view, and we use it on a day-to-day as well, but we want the tool as well to give us this tactical level, day-of-day changing overs, optimization. So we're trying some things on production scheduling as well. There's OTM and transportation is on the pipeline, and we're currently using supply planning as an unconstrained plan. We can have a chat if someone's interested in the QA as well, what that means, but we are trialing constraint planning as well this year to see an improvement in our balancing of in lines and everything, and hoping next year we can launch backlog management and GOP, which is global order promising. So pretty exciting times coming for us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please go, Monsi.
Yeah, I just want to compliment Adrian about the next steps. I think that to continue implementing this kind of system, it's really important for all the attendees that they need to understand that now that we are like the key implementators, or we are the persons that we are trying to make some changes inside the business. It's really important that you encourage your team and also the business to do these kind of changes, because nowadays we see that this kind of implementation around Oracle or this kind of ERPs, there are no advantage in the market. It's just a necessity that we need to have. So it's really important that you need to understand that maybe all of the business has different times. No all the business needs to be at the same time. No all the models needs to be at the same time, because sometimes we just want to implement everything at the same time. And this is the perfect example that we are going step by step, trying to be successful in all of them. And it's a path. It's just the beginning of the path. Yeah. So we are going to continue understand what are the challenge in Oracle also, and understanding what will be the next steps in our business to continue having a different level of maturity in our process. Yeah. Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you, Mansi. It's I think it would be helpful for our attendees or the people who are really thinking about to move forward and how they can move forward, from where to think. I think that would be really helpful for them. And I already see questions are coming here. I got my first question here, which is like, great to hear that Oracle provides cloud-based supply chain solution and NuPure using these solution and having good success. It would be good to hear a little on what Oracle is doing in AI. I think, Stephen, this is for you.
Thanks, Shivani. Yeah, great question. So if you're not aware, Oracle's been and continues to build a rich and deep AI capabilities throughout our cloud application suite. These are not just future roadmap items, they're here and now capabilities in our Fusion suite of products today. There's generally two types of AI. There's the classic AI machine learning, which generally helps with decision making, and then there's generative AI, and that generates communications in the form of text, voice, and visuals. There are a lot of both these capabilities across our Fusion suite, and they're included and embedded at no additional cost, which is fantastic, right? And I can give you a couple of examples that hopefully will bring this to life. If we think about classic AI and machine learning, if we use predictive equipment maintenance as an example. In this case, in predictive maintenance, machine learning learns how parameters like machine vibrations, temperatures, humidity, and human operators and their combinations and permutations that come together in history, which resulted in a machine breakdown in the past. Classic AI can then apply the AI learning to predict future breakdowns in real time when the same parameters emerge in the future. So that's a general classic AI. When we think about generative AI, let me use a description generation as an example. So some organizations have massive amounts of items in their product catalog or their maintenance catalogs, for argument's sake. They need a good standardization item descriptions for searching purposes, as well as for good and proper presentations in their web stores. This has typically been a tedious and hard task for individuals. Where Gen AI comes in at Oracle, we can quickly generate standardized item descriptions using its algorithms. It helps save time, helps reduce errors, and improves the overall quality of product descriptions to increase in customer engagement and really boost sales, which is very important. This general AI capability is especially important to customers in retail and distribution industries with lots of items in their product catalog. So as of today, there's a few hundred such AI capabilities across our suite, and every 3 months, there'll be more and more capabilities launched. And again, best of all, it all comes as part of the product, so no extra charge for that one. Thanks, Shivani.
Great, Stephen. And thank you so much for answering that question, because we are already seeing the interest from lots of customers around the AI and Gen AI. It would be really interesting to see how these new technologies are going to bring revolution in supply chain. So meanwhile, I got my another question, and I think this is for NuPure team. What will be the main advice, what you would like to give to our audience who are planning a similar implementation? I think once you already touch it, but please explain a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. I think that for me, the key thing is the communication. It's really important in all the levels, in all the areas, to be communicated around what will be the expectations about the time, the modules, everything around the implementation. It's really important that in the demand planning part and also in the supply planning, in the full planning, it's really important to be aligned, for example, with finance. You need to understand that all the changes that you are making in the system or the tuning that you want to make, they are aligned with the full business. So it's really, really important to understand that the communication needs to flow really, really good. You need to have a leader in this kind of implementation that drives you and all the team to understand what will be the next steps, what will be the frame times that we need to achieve. So for me, the communication is the most important thing. And also, it's sometimes, as I said, all the path is really painful because sometimes you think or you feel that you are losing time or you are losing money, but it's not like that. You are investing time and also money, because at the end, the proof that you can share with all the leadership team in your company, it's that when you review all the KPIs, you can show them and you can demonstrate them that the KPIs are like the main drivers of the business. So when you don't have this kind of system in your company, the KPIs could be okay, but as soon as you implement this kind of system in your company, the KPIs start overperforming because there's no human intervention. So it's more about decision making, drive or depends of the data that this kind of system provide you. So the decisions or the discussions that you have in this kind of implementation, they are really different. You are not focused in one bottle or 10 bottles. You are focusing more in what will happen the next year, what will be the demand, how is the weather performing. There's a lot of facts around that you can start discussing in a strategic perspective, instead just focusing the tactical part. So it's really important to understand that these kind of things, there are an investment and it requires some time always. Adrian, maybe you can have any other comment around that.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. I think that the first thing is when we started our meetings and before we even started implementation, we were talking about getting supply planning and everything in place. I think we missed the mark a bit in terms of we thought supply planning was only a planning function and it affects almost every other department. So I just to reiterate that you have to have an alignment, not only with your planning department, but also procurement is involved, customer service, logistics, transport, manufacturing in a way. So if you have a multidisciplinary team with a lot of people from different departments, you might get to a better understanding to start. That's one thing that I will highly recommend that it will be successful. And I think the other thing, and just to touch a bit more on the KPI side of things, just with a story, like a personal story with NuPure, how we handle it. So when we started supply planning in December, mid of summer, we decided to launch it only in one side, like just to make sure, you know, how it works, if it, if we don't have confidence and so forth. And we often do it, but we basically check how much RM we're getting, how much raw materials and everything. And procurement manager just sent an email saying that the site that we're using, Oracle, was having the best numbers in terms of the stock on hand they wanted, not much fat in the orders that we're taking. And that gave me enough confidence and I think trust to tell the rest of the teams is all I did on this side was following Oracle recommendation with the parameters I gave. So if we feed the parameters correctly, we will get a better number. So I basically got a buy-in for every other planners from the get-go. And I think last but not least is it will take time to get the right parameters in. Like you just gotta try it out, see how it works, and you will start slowly being better and better in recognizing how you can change your parameters to get better output. And that's basically a game after you implement, changing the outcomes. And yeah, that's pretty much our top tip.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Mansi. I think looking at the time, I can take one more question, which I already have on my screen. So it's like, how did you ensure the implementation was successful considering the stringent timeline? So I guess it's for you, Phil.
Thanks, Shivani. Okay, yes, as Shivani said, I mean, this was extremely ambitious timeline for this project, 12 weeks, which we wouldn't generally be recommending to go something so tight. But there's pros and cons to that in terms of a requirement. I think, you know, on the downside, you're under a lot of pressure to get everything in place in order to meet the deadlines. But on the upside, it forces you to be very focused in terms of the things that have to be done. So in terms of this particular project, first of all, as Adrian said, you know, we went through the requirements gathering and the learning, and we generally try and provide some education and talk about the solution right at the beginning. So that sort of helps us to get a good understanding of what we need to do from both NuPure's side and also from our side in terms of what we need to deliver. We had to be very focused as well in terms of making sure we didn't get project creep, because we had no room to handle project creep. So, which doesn't mean that we didn't actually consider alternatives in terms, as we went through the project, in terms of doing things differently to what we had originally planned. But if something came up that required us to do something differently, then we could have a discussion and sort of say, okay, if we're going to do this, should maybe we not do something else, or could we piggyback this on the back of something that we're actually already doing, so that we can kind of squeeze all of that stuff in. And that's one of the reasons, I guess. I mean, initially we looked at GOP and we looked at production scheduling as well. And that was part of the reason, you know, as we went through, we sort of said, okay, well, maybe we should just do this in phase 1. We can do this in phase 2. So they were critical things. I think also, you know, the NuPure team, Monsi and Adrian, were excellent to work with. So very pragmatic, and all of the people beneath them very pragmatic. So they clearly wanted to implement the solution. They were open to having discussions about better ways of doing things and alternatives. And so we had a very good relationship between Trinamix and NuPure, and we continue to have a very good relationship. And we're sort of also personally interested in seeing NuPure sort of succeed in what they're doing. So I think all those things helped us to kind of stay focused in terms of what we were doing and deliver a result. The fact that NuPure already had a lot of the cloud suite helped as well, because that meant that we could piggyback, there's a lot of native integrations in supply planning and demand management that you can use in that situation. So if we were, had another external system that we were trying to integrate to, then we would have had to have developed integrations possibly from scratch. And then, in that scenario, that might not be so feasible to do it in that time frame. So all of those things, I think, were key in terms of getting that solution up and running. And also, I think to Adrian's point, as he's just discussing, we get it up and running, we'll get the system working, and then once we're actually operational, then we can fine tune the system as we go forward and look for better ways of doing it. So I think they're probably the key points that I would say out of that implementation. Adrian and Monsi, unless you got anything else you want to add on that point?
I reckon feel that for us, saying it's a success, the implementation is basically in terms of usage, right? We use the tool, we drive a lot of our KPIs and our data is straight out of the software. So I think that's a success. Always like everything, right? We are continuously monitoring, continuously improving the parameters, continually growing. There's also Oracle does this every 3 months. They do like a dispatch update with different features. So we try to keep on top of that and see if those new features we can add it to our business practices. And that's something we constantly do. But yeah, I think given the time frame and the fact that we started using from the get-go after these 12 weeks, and we spent most of our summer using Oracle, and there wasn't no stock out or any issues with the customer, I think that's the main proof that it worked.
Yeah.
And also something that we can highlight is that Oracle, it's a friendly tool. You can create different dashboards inside Oracle. So you can create your own reports. So it's really, as soon as you start using the tool, it's really easy. It's really intuitive. You also have, in the demand planning perspective, you also have the opportunity to have some building blocks, and could be around the customer recommendation, some promotions running. So you have like the full track of the last year's, but also you have the full tracking for the next months to understand what is happening around the demand. So it's a tool that allows you have different inputs, and you can have different outputs. You also can run different plans in the tool. So it's really helpful, because sometimes we have different type of customers, and it's difficult just to run one type of plan based on a specific behavior. So you can run different plans, do the tuning that Adrian said. So it's a challenge. You always need to try to do better and better. But yeah, it's an easy tool. As soon as you start, it will be really, really easy to continue using the tool.
Yeah, I think Oracle's very flexible on that point. And also, as I was just thinking then, as after we gone live and you come back and looking at different ways of managing data or whatever, and asking for different, can we look at data in a different way? And those things are easy to do as well, right? So we made a few changes after the go live to make the data analysis easier and that sort of stuff. And it's because Oracle's relatively easy in that space that we're able to actually do that without a massive amount of effort. So yeah, I agree with you on that point. It's good.
Thank you so much for that wonderful experience sharing. But I would just like to put one point from my side. No one can be successful alone. So I really wanted to extend my thanks to Oracle for giving us the opportunity, NuPure team to showing trust on us. That whole thing together make everybody successful. So thank you so much. I think we are just coming to the end of the webinar. So I would request Stephen to share any parting thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Shivani. Look, I think it's been amazing hearing this story, and I think what's come out of it for me is I'd encourage everyone that's listening to this or about to go through a software transformation or purchasing of a new tool to work really closely with your delivery partners like Trinamix and your Oracle account team and attend more events like this for further learnings. As you've heard today, you don't know what you don't know. And Oracle is always innovating and innovating at speed. So reach out to us. We're here to help, and we're here to share the journeys like NuPure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'm apologizing because of time constraint if I'm not able to take. We will send our answers as a follow-up through email to all our attendees, whosoever questions are left. And again, I would say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Monsi, Adrian, Stephen, Phil, for making this successful today. So yeah, thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.